So, here we go. Number 83, the Darkness to Light Godcast. Welcome back. Jim McFadyen here in the Vortex Centre for Wellbeing. Hope you're well. And this one is called, or the topic is integrity, which is something I have been thinking a lot about. I think I've thought a lot about it in the past, probably a couple of years ago. It was something that, it was a video I watched with Dr. David Hawkins, one of my teachers for back in the day, specific to spirituality and consciousness, and for him it was discerning truth from falsehood. And then anybody that knows his work, Hawkins' work, he put together called the scale of consciousness, whereby you could calibrate. It sounds mental, but and go and look up his stuff. Let him explain it rather than me. But basically, you could see whether something was true, whether something was a lie, and then even beyond that, you could then, which is really powerful when you think if you had the ability to, anything in the world, past or present, so you could go back and you could pick specific situations and, see the truth that we've been told, that's been documented, that's been left behind. You could start to calibrate, on against consciousness and against this scale that he created, as to how high things up the scale, in terms of how close they were to, first and foremost, the truth, but then the information that these events or beings or even like words, books, phrases, basically anything that has ever been, you could calibrate it in terms of, relation to the highest power on his scale, which would be the divine. And then all the way down to the low numbers, the low scales of the things we experience in this world. So really fascinating stuff. So integrity's been about, for the last probably couple of years, been thinking about it a lot recently, again because of the stuff that's going on within my life. Hawkins talked about how it's so important at a certain level, to stand up for what's right and to basically speak the truth. Why? Because it obviously matters, and in this time, and this is feeding into a lot of the stuff that I'm kind of feeling just now, in terms of watching what's going on in the world, both at home, in my own town over the last couple of weeks, and then the things that I'm seeing, and then watching the World Cup's on just now as well in America and Mexico and Canada, but the prime focus is America. And just seeing and watching in particular the Scottish people and the Tartan Army, as they're known, and watching that from my perspective, and seeing what I see, and as always with me and with this work. And this is where it's difficult, because I don't want to offend anybody, but at the same time I can only really document and speak from my truth and my position, my vantage point, which is always, with this, is coming from the last 30 years of my work and the spiritual vantage point of, seeing the world and seeing, what's going on within it, seeing the people, who they are, how they behave, what they're saying. The world is obviously chaos just now, and it's a literal circus, and in so many different fronts. And then seeing how people, behave within it. It's something I don't do a lot of. I'm not really a big commentator. I maybe do it more in private, with my inner circle or with my wife, or a lot of time with humour. I'll comment on something, but I never really I don't want to do that on here a lot of the time. But this kind of feeds into, watching, specifically what we are perceived as Scottish people, and what the Tartan Army is perceived as abroad, and me looking in on it and seeing what I see. Again, speaking from experience, I was a guy who, I've been on two sides of the fence, so specific to America, we did a tour just before I retired. I was probably 19, 20, and I was playing with Queen's Park Rangers for Glasgow, based in Hampden. Could it get any more Scottish than that? And we did a tour of, it wasn't a tour of California. We played, I think, 2 or 3 games. Played against Rod Stewart's team in the Pasadena Rose Bowl, 120 or 130,000 all-seater. There was about 3 men in a dug there when we played in it, and we played at one of the Highland Games. So it was a big deal, the kind of. I remember being at that age and that stage of my life and going through the airports and being absolutely pissed. We all were, and singing the songs and the good that you get at that time, and certainly what I got at that time, being part of something, being part of the team. But then, when we went to America, it continued on a lot of the time. And, me looking back now as going back, what's that, 34 years ago, and seeing who I was and seeing what I got for that, and watching where I'm at just now, and my perspective on that whole thing. And then the world's a very different place now, of course it is. And again, always it's like how are we doing? What are we doing? And what's the stuff that's either making it better or taking us further away from, where we should be trying to go to? And again, so few people even are asking that question. Never mind know the answers to it. Where should we be trying to go to? Most people are just in ignorance. Most people are just, what I see with that group, that whatever that is, and it's not all it, but certainly a lot of that you see on telly, it's just, Scottish guys getting absolutely wrecked from 7 in the morning to 7 the next morning and no stopping, and being really famous for the ability to be drunks, and fucking consume alcohol and watching, and it's interesting to watch. Again, England's just arrived at the World Cup, so this is, we'll be on. This is the first week, end of the first week. Scotland's played their second game, so we're getting into the second week just about, which starts tomorrow. Will be the start of the second week, and so all the teams are now getting to point, and you see the England fans coming in, and straight away, the Scotland guys are just pushed and having fun, and just being childlike, and watching why we do that has been a great question that's been coming up. Why? What is it that makes us that? What is it that makes us want to do that and exhibit that type of behaviour? What do we get for that? What does the collective get for that? And I saw a wee clip. I've not been watching a lot of it, but I saw a wee bit clip of England fans in a pub, singing about the German bombers, and it's a straight away. There's a different intention. The Scottish people are trying to be nice and they're fitting in, and they're just fucking steaming. But there's a level of the fight that you can see straight away for the England fans. There's another song they were singing, really inflammatory, and it's straight away. It's different. So it's interesting to watch. Interesting how they rule us, which a lot of Scottish fans, don't. They don't seem to remember. They don't have any knowledge of the history of Scotland, and. That's another challenge for me, when people are standing or fighting and believing in something, and they've actually no idea what it is, in terms of what they believe in. But again, they've been sold another story. So it all feeds into the same thing. Today, this one's about integrity, which, started off with Hawkins, and it feeds into everything. It feeds into society. It feeds into, not knowing. A lot of people, if you to ask them what integrity means, in fact, go and look it up. There's a definition that I've got in my phone, and I've written a few things down here. So I've been talking about this to my group over the last couple of weeks because it feeds in directly to the experiences that I've been having and we've been having within the group. So the definition is a quality of being honest and having strong moral principles that you consistently adhere to. And then a wee bit after that, even when no one is watching, which I loved. That's quite a lot of people, like how do you conduct yourself? Integrity for me means to do the right thing, always if you can. And why is that important? Why is it important to do the right thing? Well, again, it's like on that scale, going back to Hawkins' scale of consciousness, where there's things that are there's right and wrong, isn't there? There's you understand that, and you've got children, and you're trying to teach your children, give them morals and the correct way of doing things. A lot of children, when they come up through at a certain level, they don't know, and they're trying to get away with stuff, So as a parent or somebody who knows, what's right and what's wrong is, and you installing that in your children, obviously. You try to always, for me, I have always, tried to do the right thing, always try to speak my truth, which with this work feels like the truth when I'm talking about the way. And again, a lot of the things, and I've had this recently, where I can feel people are getting offended, because of what I'm saying. And again, to reiterate, I'm the messenger. I'm just bringing in, again, what I've experienced and what I've learned from my teachers and from this way of living and being for the last 30 years. And I'm defending the way. I'm defending the way that it's meant to be. Why? Because if we can get it back to that, then we've got a chance. And we don't have many chances, but this way is the way that works. When I see the way that society and the way that, watching, again, specific to, sorry for hitting on the tartan army, but watching how they conduct themselves in terms of how they behave and that whole thing, I'm going like, there must be there is, and I know that there is more to it than that, obviously, but I suppose with this, for me, the intention is to speak it up and speak it out so that people can, even if it's only one that asks what it is that I'm talking about, and then, at some point, hopefully they go on a journey and they get the experience and they start to realise, there is a different way of living and being, which again, most people don't know. It's ignorance. Ignorance means we don't know. We're brought up and we're put into this system, this really intentional system that produces en masse most of the people, they've got a certain belief system and a certain way of, an identity and and living and being. My wife was on one of the calls last night, and she was talking about, the patriotism, you feel when, you're in that collective group, and you're standing for your country, and there's a kind of pride thing. It's really interesting, where we pick that up, and that's something that, does that come through nature? Is that something you're born with because of where you're born? Probably less so now because of the, the mix of different, the boundaries in the world, are dissolved now, aren't they? So there's a lot more, back in the day we would be Scots, and the English would be very different, the Irish would be very different, because of obviously people travelling and the way the world is now. Then that's obviously been diluted. Perhaps in the past you did get that ancestral, and I think that's definitely the case. I feel that within myself, a real affection to Scotland. All my grandparents, they came from Scotland. My grandfather, who I feel that the closest connection to, was from one of the islands, Islay, and grew up sold to the British Army. So a boy soldier, and from 12 years old sold to the British Army. Just, fucking hell. And then ended up training commandos in the war. So I've always had the real, there's obviously something within me. And there's a reason I feel I'm meant to be here in Scotland with this work, and helping as many people as we can with this work. And that's got its own challenges, obviously. But the identity of who we are, and the identity of what it means to be Scottish, most people have forgotten that. Most people don't know what that means. So it's interesting, watching the world and watching the dilution of that, and then what's learned, the learned behaviours. In terms of what you're taught to stand under a certain flag and show allegiance to that flag. And again, that's the ultimate separation game for me. That's one of the first ways that they basically separate us, is by saying, right, you get into that box there, you get into that country there, that's your bit of paper that allows you to be in that country. Never more so evident just now, living in Scotland, and any possibility of living anywhere in Europe legally, in terms of being there, because they allow you to be there, is really restrictive. For much of it, and so we are assigned to be Scottish. We're in that box, and we're brainwashed. But you pick up, because of your environment, the school system, the education, you get in terms of religion, and what it's certainly when I was growing up, very different now, because the borders and the boundaries are coming down. Whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, I don't know. But it's interesting to watch, what they've been, sold, and what they've taken on as a belief system as who they are, and then what they get out of that. And then the big question is whether it's doing any good or bad, and does it help anything, or is it just another part of the fucking circus, like a complete distraction? When you see the games like that, UFC's another one, the bare knuckle stuff. It's for me, I look at it, you think, America, perfect timing just now, the 250th anniversary, and the UFC, which is, again, I've had a bit of flack over this. UFC is entertainment. It's classed as entertainment. It's not a sport. And the significant, and I learned that from the man who basically trained with when the UFC was started. Steve Maxwell was one of the trainers for the Gracie family that basically started the UFC and basically dominated it right at the very beginning. And he spoke about how the UFC is set up as entertainment, which means it's legal to cheat. This is Steve Maxwell's words, 6th degree Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, integrous human being. You look for integrity, having someone that's speaking the truth. I heard that many, many years ago. And so they're able to fix the fights if they want to, and it's not illegal. They're able to, control. Not that happens all the time, but I've seen many fights in the past. The one with McNugget, when he knocked him out with his shoulder. The man he was fighting, Donald Cerrone. Again, I watched the UFC for the very beginning. Not the original, but when I started training martial arts, I became aware of it. And then when it really kind of took off with the Ultimate Fighter Live, that was the first thing when I really get into it. And then you watch, again, integrity of people fighting for their lives for not a lot of money. And it's back to Rome. It's the Circus Maximus, I saw Craig Jones, Brazilian jiu-jitsu practitioner, and he was talking about how the event at the White House, it was like the same as the film Kill, Django Unchained, where they bring people in to fight for their pleasure and for their entertainment, for the president for his 80th birthday. Can you think of anything more? I mean, we don't know. It becomes normal, and it becomes a big event, and it becomes fantastic. But the core of what it actually is, to bringing them in to fight themselves to the death almost, and the damage that gets done for his pleasure and his entertainment, Again, it's just the way of the world, and what's been sold as the normal now. Is something that I've got obviously huge challenge with. You're never going to change that, and it gets more and more people are now getting bored of the UFC. I've been bored with it for a long time. I watched a few fights where I could see when I just didn't feel right, and God bless the people that are doing it, that are fighting for a pittance, putting their life on the line, and then seeing the damage that gets done to them, in terms of CTE and the kind of degenerative disorders like further down the road. Never mind the UFC with their kind of bare minimum protection, but you look at the bare knuckle stuff, and so the UFC is obviously not enough anymore. People are not excited enough. That you need more. You're exposed to that amount of stress. I remember when it came out, it was very much like it was barbaric, and it was like human cockfighting. And then now, going back to what's that, 10, 15 years down the road, and it's tame by comparison to watching somebody with bare knuckles, and the brutality and just the violence and the damage that's involved in that is, and perhaps that's very, very different, and it feels very, very different because of the level of what it is. That isn't a sport. It's just violence. It doesn't. It's something that I don't like. I really don't. I don't like watching that. I don't know how people can watch that and get pleasure from it. What it is. What do we need to go and watch that and get pleasure from it? Crazy times we're in just now. So again, to speak your truth, to stand for what is right, to right and wrong, and for me it's very simple. How is it helping the greatest good? Does these things and does this help the greatest good? Is all of that stuff I've just spoke about? That's a distraction. That's the circus. That's the way that. And maybe great because we human beings, we need some because this world is very difficult. The other realm that I'm talking about, the spiritual journey, the getting things back to the way that it should be, or at least a knowledge of it or an understanding, or at least bringing it in and doing both would be, I suppose, the only way we could do that. Then so few people even know what it is, because they're so brainwashed in a very specific way of doing it. And integrity and standing up and speaking your truth and saying, for what you believe in, it's so important. It really is. It's and especially when your intentions are pure. When I talk about this, I'm not looking. I hate confrontation. I really do. I don't like the fight. I don't have any fight in me. But I'm also not afraid to stand up and speak my truth when something has went wrong or has been done wrong or goes against the way that I see it, particularly with this work. And this is where integrity came up in spades over the last probably 2 or 3 weeks. Reached a situation again where no other way to describe it, like somebody that was close and used to be part of the community and part of this work basically was stealing my work, stealing the last 30 years of what I've put together. Which is something that's come up. Anybody that's watched closely is something that I've dealt with for a long time. It's not nice when somebody steals from you. It really isn't. It's interesting watching them, how they make it all right and how they, make it so they can continue to do it. I've seen that many, many times over the years. It's put me in a position many times over the years where I had to take people out of my life. That's like a one strike for me. There's always the conversation or the presenting of bringing up the truth. You need to speak the truth in such you can't dance around about it because Hawkins says when you give somebody a pass, when you make it all right for them, you've robbed them, you've done them a disservice. Of saying no, that's not right. So you've kind of you've excused them of their responsibility. And a lot of the time, most of the time they don't know. Some of the times they do know, but most of the time they don't. I've seen that so many times over years. People come in here, they get on about it, it changes their life, it saves their life, they experience the miracles, and then whether it's 2 weeks, one night, one person came and fucking just stole the whole thing. Whether it's 2 weeks or 2 months or 2 years they've been here, then at some point those that feel that they've got it, they've got everything that this community and me and my work has got to give them. At some point they get a wee taste of, I could do that, I could be the man, which is great. Now this is where I need to explain, where I'm coming from, and I'll bounce about, and this is a huge subject for me, so I will bounce about a wee bit. I'll talk about this specific situation, and then I'll explain, the good that's came out of it for everybody has been fantastic. Always, there's never anything that's ever in vain, but it's like, for me, from my perspective, and why I stand up and why I say no is obviously important to express. So when somebody takes my stuff, when somebody just comes in and they kind of, they need to realise what it's actually taken for me to work this out. This is my 29th year, getting into my 30th year now of working on myself, being on this intentional journey, this holistic journey to heal myself, to discover myself, to discover who I really was, to discover what this life experience was all about. All the personal development stuff, all the spiritual development stuff, hundreds of thousands of hours, to answer the questions, the really profound questions that everybody should be asking, but almost nobody does. Who am I and what is this all about? That was my 2 questions back in 1998, I would say they started. And after 18 years of really getting it and having no stone unturned, never missed a single day for the last 29 years in terms of the practices, the devotional pursuit of the truth, the devotional pursuit of the experience, so that I knew the truth. It wasn't just somebody talking about it. It's been something that's been an incredible journey that continues to this day. It doesn't end, I'm still working it out and getting it and got it and coming back off it again. It's the ebb and flow of this life experience. But it took me 18 years to really get it, to really master myself and know the self, know the true self. And there's 3 different parts to this. Again, some of the people I'm surrounded with just now, I'm so blessed with the conversation I'm having with those that are living this work and part of this mission. And it was Michael that actually mentioned the other night about how there's different stages to it. And there's three parts to it as far as I can see. There's a waking up process. So somebody comes in and they're new to it. Maybe, never been known about it. Maybe been called towards it because of necessity, whether they're struggling or suffering, or they know somebody that's been through it, or so they're called to this work in some way, and then they come in and they're given the experience of it. No, I'm not just talking specific to me here. This is like anything, like a different way of self-help or self-care, or being aware that you can make things better with the stuff that you do. And so they come in, specific to here then, they come in, they go through the experience, the first session, which is, I've always known it's way too much, but my intention is to cut corners and create shortcuts and give people as much as I can. So they come in, take them through the breath work, we switch off the nervous system, give them the experience of not being able to think. Deep relaxation, so the experience peace on every level, many of them for the first time ever, the ability to not think, to just be in the moment, to stop and feel that eternal moment is so powerful. Having your nervous system switched off, so there's not that constant stress response that's triggering, coming from the brain or the mind, or coming from the body and triggering the brain or the mind, that negative never-ending loop for many people. They've never had their nervous system switched off. So even that would be miraculous to begin with. But then the way that I've learned, first and foremost, to do it myself, and then the way that I've taught people and in terms of how it goes together, with all the things that I teach, all the stuff that I've learned with my own experiences and all the stuff that I've been through. Again, anybody that knows my story, I've got the t-shirts for quite a few things, quite a lot of stuff that's not that nice in terms of traumas and negative experience in my life. So what I'm doing here is, because I've been through it, I'm then passing on the stuff that I've done that helped me. These universal practices and principles and tools and techniques and teachers that I used on my journey, they're all behind me, and in the cupboard next door and upstairs there's books everywhere and recordings and journals that I've basically documented what I've done and who helped me along the way. And I always pay credit. That's so important within this. You must pay credit. Why? Because when I talk about Wayne Dyer, I'm then looking and hoping somebody's going to go and discover Wayne Dyer the way that I discovered Wayne Dyer and what he'd done for me. Really, really important to always give credit. So the first part, wherever you come in, you wake up and you're drawn towards it. You go through the experience, you get into the relaxation, you're then into the meditation, you reconnect back to the self. And the way that I've done it is and this has been done before, but there's a specific way in language and system that I've created. That's what I'm the program, as I call it, the way that I do it with people, what I've put together is original to me. There's nobody else doing it, and 99% of it came through meditation and hundreds of thousands of hours of contemplation and working it out and reading and wondering what it'd be like to speak to one person, and then what it'd be like to speak to 10 person, and in creating that vehicle with the centre and my own work and becoming a coach and all the different stages to that. It's been many hours of practice, trial and error on myself first and foremost, and once I really got it, which Again, most people are around about this. There's the first part of waking up. The second part of it, there's only 3 bits as far as I can see, but the second bit is like on the intentional journey and trying to work it out. So and that's an inward journey. That's a selfish journey. That's like me trying to get this, like taking this information for everywhere that I can get it. That's what the second part's about. And that second part can last many, many lifetimes, I would imagine. You could have came in from previous lifetimes carrying it, and then it hits you at a certain point in this lifetime. The goal, once you get around about this work in this way, is to get it in this lifetime, to transcend the second part of it. And it's a really distinct kind of finish line, the second part of it. The second part of it is when you really, really get it for yourself. And you see, beyond the veil, you see through the veil, you discover the true self, you discover the divine in terms of what that means would be enlightenment, so you understand that you're not, the guy, you're not just Jim, you're not your name, you're not your identity, you're not the things that you think that you do, you're not a member of the Tartan Army, you're not a citizen of Scotland, and that's just the stuff that you do in this lifetime. But there's something way greater than that. There's the eternal journey of the essence that you carry inside of you, your spirit that's carried within your soul, that you brought into this world. And once that, once the realisation and through the direct experience of that, which only comes on the spiritual path, it comes through meditation, that's when you get it. Some people are gifted at, some people it can just hit them and it's just their time for whatever reason. Most have got to work at it, by doing very specific things, and meditation is how you get to that place. And I'm not talking about, a lot of people use drugs as a shortcut in terms of, the DMT or the hallucinogenics, and that's not what I'm talking about. This is very, very different. This isn't a trip. This is something that's very, very real. And we experience it, and you see, when you see people that have been through it, there's never any need for them to exaggerate it. There's never any, they're humble people. It's a very humbling experience. And they talk and they communicate and they see the world in a very, very different way from somebody who thinks they've seen it or thinks they've got it and is shouting for the rooftops about what it is. It's very, very subtle and very different. Once you reach that point, once you get to the point of like really knowing the self, like experiencing full enlightenment, mastering the self, it's like the Matrix, you see beyond the computer program, you see beyond the script, you see beyond all the control and the circus, the lower levels of consciousness, and you get to a point, it's like, right, okay, so now I've really, really got it for myself. Hopefully that happens in this lifetime, and then hopefully there's enough time for the next part of it, which is really to give it away. Once you get it for yourself, once you master the self, once you know the self, then you need to really pass this on. That becomes something that became clear to me within minutes of my first enlightened experience, was that I need to pass this on. If this is in me, then it must be in everybody. And if I can work it out with what I've done, then how can I enable other people to experience what I've got? Because it must be in them also. That was really, really, a really powerful kind of time for me. So you get it for yourself, you master the self, which, how long does that take? I don't know. It takes time. It took me 18 years every single day. No stone unturned. I gave up everything in terms of the diet changed, all the negatives out of my life, medications, alcohol, drugs, people, situations, environments. And for 18 years, it was just me, my girl, and then eventually our family, and God every single day. Devotion to God, getting up at my bed at 3 o'clock every morning, without ever having to set the alarm, and sitting in silence for 2 or 3 hours every morning, and going inside and contemplating and going on a healing journey and a self-discovery journey, and asking questions and listening to so many teachers, and so many different recordings, and really like you talk about a dug with a bone. You couldn't even, to count up the amount of, it's been my life's work for the last 30 years. It's almost literally everything I've done, or all that I've done. There's not been a lot of space for anything else. And really grateful because of where I got to with it, and now the position I'm in with it, being able to be at that stage now when I'm really kind of sharing it and bringing other people and helping other people so that they can share it as well. I'm not enough, in these ways, as I said, they're not my ways. I've just taken, this is my spin on them. These are the eternal ways, the ways that make things better, that all the greats talk about. I'm just here in 2026 talking about, my experience of it and how it applies directly to the things that we're suffering with just now, and how it makes all the things better. Which really importantly, to identify and to acknowledge that the normal way and traditional way that people are looking for answers and solutions, that doesn't work. The pills don't fucking work. The medications and the system, a lot of the therapies that they use, it just doesn't work. Not for what we're dealing with just now. So people come in And within the community, I'm helping them in that middle stage. I'm helping them like work it out for themselves, heal themselves, deal with the realities of what they're dealing with, how you use these tools and techniques, how, the basic stuff, the breath work and the relaxation and, all the basic low level stuff that we need to do that you should be doing as a, like a daily practice. That takes time to bring into your life. The mouth taping, like changing your diet, taking the poisons out, being aware of the negative impact of people in your life, or what you're doing to yourself in your life, with your phone, your behaviours. It takes time. That can take years sometimes for people to just get, the basic stuff of to get on to find the ladder, never mind get on it. And then they start to be interested in, when they start to sleep differently and they start to learn how to calm their nervous system and then maybe clean their diet up a wee bit. Then further down the road, they might start to ask about doing cleanses, or they might start to ask about fasting, or they might start to ask about, all the different evolutions of that entry level stage of just coming in and going, like, what is this? What do I need to do to get the benefits from it? And there's a learning curve there in terms of, what it takes. And at some point, and this has happened, many times over the years, people like think they get it. They get to a bit where they get it, and again, on Hawkins' work, when you're where I'm at with this and you've experienced what I've experienced, you can normally feel when that's happening with somebody. I feel everything, any disturbance in the force, anything that's disharmony around about me, anywhere there's a lack of coherence, even the people that stand around about me, I need everybody to be in. There's no fighting, we don't argue, we're on the same team, we're all on this mission together. If there's anything that comes up, it needs to be dealt with straight away. We need to, you can't have the fucking Chinese whispers, and before you know it, I refuse to do that. There is no drama. I hate drama. There's no drama within this group. I refuse to have it. So I can feel where people are at. I can feel when somebody's like ready to leave. I can feel when somebody's ready to go and steal my stuff. I can feel when somebody's ready to become the man, and that's interesting to watch. And when they go away and they take this work. And this one in particular, I watched it for quite a few weeks, and people were sending me videos about, have you seen this, all that kind of stuff, and because they knew the situation, they knew that they'd been through here, and they could see, because they know what I'm doing inside out and back to front. We've spent so many, thousands of hours now together over the last couple of years, that people know exactly what it is that I'm doing. I'm actively teaching people what it is that I do, so that for free, so that they can pass it on to other people, so that this can be left behind. As I said, it's going to take more than me, so these eternal ways and my take on it, which will be improved by many of them by bringing their special take on it. But there's a framework, and there's it's like tipping your hat and giving credit to the source. Acknowledging that this is where it came from, this is where I got it. That's something that's so important to me. Why? Because number one, it denies people access to me and what I've created over the last 30 years. It denies them the access that the person who's basically taken it for themselves has got. So they've got all these benefits, and then when they become the man, and there's never any mention. This has happened so many times over the years, whereas somebody comes in, they take all the stuff. I don't know whether a couple in the past, imposter syndrome, I know something that's real, and this one man told me this right at the beginning. Then I watched him steal my poems, like literally steal my poems and my words, and then the stuff he was talking about in the post and the way he was doing it and how he did the videos, and that was through the Wim Hof method, and just watched. I'm going, well, there you go, it's right, it was diagnosed correctly, it was imposter syndrome, because it was literally like a carbon copy of the stuff that I was doing, that was coming through me. Went and did his own thing, took the stuff, and again in that instance and many other times, almost every single time, it's like what you've just been given. For him, it was probably 2 or 3 years. Never charged him a penny. Like, did all sorts of stuff with him. And when he took it away, when he went away and took people with him, then they've just not been allowed to get on about the stuff that allowed you to get to where you got to. That's something that I feel, it's not about me being the fucking man, like fuck all that. It's like denying somebody access to this thing that I know exists, that I'm trying to share with people and trying to help people get. That's the biggest thing with it. And biggest part, which really just came up this week as well in one of the groups, was like, so if you're denying them access to me, you're denying them access to the program. You don't mention that the program exists, and you don't mention there's a live meditation every single day. And if you're keen on spiritual practices, or because that's what a lot of them are selling, they're doing the whole, I'll talk about that in a wee minute, but it's the spiritual practices that they're selling. The way that it's came through me, and I've like taught people that they're taking this as their own. So when you're giving that to somebody, then they lose access to what we're doing in here. And some of the experiences within our community, whether it's online or in person, obviously I want more people to experience that. Why? Because it's literal magic. It's real. It's really powerful. It's profound experiences, the healings that are taking place, watching what it's done to people in terms of who they became in their life experience because of this work and nothing else. They get on the programme and they do this stuff, and then you watch, I can't tell you how inspired I am by certain members within the community, how over the last 5, 6, 7 years, 5, 6, 7 months, some of them, who they became in a really short period of time, and some of them it's been longer as well, but people that apply these tools and techniques into their life, watching the father they become, watching the human being they become, watching the mammy they become, the person of influence in terms of somebody who speaks their truth, or maybe hundreds of stories of people fixing something that they couldn't have fixed in a previous interpretation of who they thought they were, by remembering who they really are and then being able to speak their truth. So much healing has taken place, so many really, really positive experiences. So when you deny somebody, from getting that, you deny somebody from access to that, then that's obviously a challenge. The third part is that there are many people. This is where breath work is so important. This is where when you're going to lie somebody flat on their back and take them through some breath work, with anything, with any, I love acupuncture, but I've never trained in it. I wouldn't bring somebody in and start firing needles into them. I basically speak from my experience in terms of the stuff that's helped me and the stuff that I'm trained in. So when I put somebody on their back and I take them through breath work, tens of thousands of people now, nothing has ever went wrong. Why? Because I know what I'm doing. I understand. I've been trained in all the aspects of the physical body, the science behind it. What's going on within your the physiology within your physical body. When something comes up, when you're experiencing something, how it relates to, when you go inside and you switch yourself off and you reconnect back into your feelings and back into your emotions, and stuff starts to come up. At that point, what do you do? This was a challenge I had with Wim Hof. We did our training with women for 6 days. It was fucking breath work at 5 every morning, 2 hours in a literal dungeon under the hotel. And I can't even tell you the trauma that was coming up. And then they would just fuck off and leave everybody. And it's people are walking about like zombies, some of them, childhood trauma coming up. And, so you need to be very aware when you lie somebody down and put them into their unconscious mind, or you put them into their heart, or reconnect them back into their soul. When you switch their head off, you're creating a space. Which is something you need to know how to hold. To hold that space is something I've said. That's one of the only things I do, is being able to hold the space. Because when it comes up, when that stuff comes up, when the childhood trauma, or when the whatever it is comes up, then are you qualified to get them through the other side of that? And that's a huge responsibility. And most people, with the best intentions, they want to become the coach to help people. I absolutely applaud that. But are you qualified? Do you have the skill set? Do you have the tools required? Do you have the experience? In any subject, so that no matter what it is that comes up, you've got the ability to help them. And you can't just go, oh, well, it's meant to come up. I hear that all the time with people doing psychedelics. No preparation. They go in and somebody batters them with either psilocybin, or it's DMT or ayahuasca they go to. And there's no preparation, so it's a trip. And good fucking luck, because when something like that hits you and you don't know what to expect and you don't know what to do, and there's nobody standing by your side and to make your way through that, neither wonder there's so many people that are, they talk about 60 to 70% of all psychiatric waiting rooms just now are people that have really fucking dodgy and negative psychedelic experiences. Why? Because people don't know what they're doing. Those that are holding the space, those that are doing it, to help people. And doing it for money and doing it for significance and doing it for whatever reasons they're doing it, they're not qualified. Because when that stuff does start to come up, it's so important. It's you need to know what it's all about. So all that stuff's a shame. That's the bit where when somebody steps away and they become the man, that's the bit where I go, and I send them love. I really do. I send them all the best. But, to call it out, to see it for what it is, this time around, it wasn't just me. There was 3 or 4 round about me within my inner circle that I passed on what had been sent to me and said, what do you think? And it was amazing what came up. It was amazing the anger that came up. I'd never seen that before from other people. So it was, all right, so they're not just stealing from me, because I've been talking for the longest time. This is our community. This is what we do. I'm actively training other people, to be in a position where they can offer this so they can help other people on their own. And then, when somebody just takes that and makes it their own, then we have a challenge with that, obviously. That was the response. It was like, fucking no way. Like, oh dear, like, what do we do about this? And there only was one thing to do, and that's to speak the truth. And I have no, for me to do that is easy. It's the truth that sets us free. It needs to be called out. You need to say no. Hawkins talks about, when you get to that level of integrity, you just say no, then, you're at a different level. You're in a place of courage, you're in a place of the truth. Again, we're trying to get to the truth all the time. And for me, within this work, and, thinking about what integrity actually is, Hawkins got a great quote. Hawkins says that, this is to do with courage and integrity. He says that God first sneaks into human society and life when the focus becomes on integrity. So when a society and people start to become integrous, then God starts to find his way in. I love that. And then another quote, which this has been an absolute cracker for me. Those who allege that their life is devoted to God must, as necessity, become integrous. And that's something that I don't even need to question within myself. I really believe. In fact, my wife gave me that truth the other night. By saying that you have it in spades. Integrity is like doing the right thing. She can see what I'm doing when nobody's watching. She knows, she's watched over 30 years. Like I've always done it before anybody sees it. And the devotion to the divine, the devotion to getting this world back on its feet, the devotion to the mission of bringing in a different way of living and being, then at some point when somebody's stealing, you can't get away with that. You just can't. You might have in the past. No going way back, they would have fucking cut your hands off. But now it's like, because of people just don't know. They've never been taught. And because of the ego, and the ego is like so super inflated now, and the desire of the ego, for the significance and to be the man, it's quite fascinating. I don't want to be the man. I want to give credit to the man. I'm trying to bring people in. I'm not the guy that sells tickets at the gates, so you can get access to the man. But a lot of these coaches, they want to be the man. I've seen it so many times over so many years, and that's a real shame, but it must be held accountable. And in this instance, once the video was sent to me, I asked a few people within, what do you think? And they all come back. And it was amazing. Michael in particular, who was the first person that called it out online, basically saying that this is straight up theft. You're stealing the Vortex and Jim McFadyen's work. And I saw it. Obviously, I was tagged in on it. I saw it. And this is where social media is great. I love social media. You can see where people are at. Because for weeks and weeks, I've been watching this this man talking about his process and what he was doing with it, and how it'd taken him 15 years to work it out. And I'm going, that's interesting, because he'd only been with us maybe a couple of years. I'd known him and never heard him talk about any of that stuff. And, watched like who he was and watched the evolution of his journey and what he was doing for a business. None of that was in alignment with the stuff, this 15-year process, and then hearing him talking about the 15-year process and really knowing what the 15-year process was. And then one day, with that video that came out, basically him explaining what the process was, and not just me that saw it, everybody saw that it was actually, no matter how you dress it up, and it wasn't very well camouflaged because the words were identical, they were just in different order. And the process is identical to what I taught him and what he learned. And then, so to say it's your 15-year process for all of the above reasons that I've just went through, at some point you need to say, nah, that isn't it. That's not right. That isn't what that is. You don't get to do that. And so at that point, you need to say it. And his reaction was, basically told me everything that I needed to know. I could feel it. It's like you're caught. And what do you then do? And for me, there only is one thing to do at that stage. It's like, you can catch a thief, so you can, somebody steals your, great, but it's like they've just lost. This is another massive challenge. They've just lost the next 10, 15 years of this, what we're becoming, what this is becoming, the co-experiences within the group. You don't get it after a couple of years. You just don't. You might think you do, and your ego might convince you you've got enough, but there's so many lessons in this, to do it together is my dream. Having people, that's why when I coach people within the community, it's for free. I don't take money off them. We're trying to do it together. I want to help people so they can help other people. If you're at a stage where you're still trying to get this for yourself, I've said this so many times over the years, if you still want to be the man and you want to get this for yourself, then fuck off. It can't be about you. This is about the way. This needs to be about the greatest good. If it's not for the greatest good, and they could say, aye, but it is for the greatest good, but it's like, then why are you doing it that way? And Michael had it in the head. Michael was brilliant. It's Michael, the changes in Michael. I'm hoping to do a squadcast with Michael when he's back. It'd be great to get Fern on as well, obviously. But the changes in Michael the last couple of years and how he's seeing things. And came off the back of him watching that video, and he'd helped somebody previously. And he realised, what he had learned from me. I'd given him everything, what it did for this human being. And then him getting to a position, as many are just now, to say, like, will you teach me this? I understand what it is. He's got it for himself now. He's going through, he's out that second part, that second phase. And how do I know that? Because he's asking the next part, how do I help other people? What can I do to help other people? There's a load of people like that just now, which is great. So my role then, at the stage and age I'm at in my life for the next 10, 15, 20, 30 years, is to pass all this on so that they can do it, so that they can so they don't take 30 years to work it out, and they make it better because of their voice and their story and their history. That's what it's all about. And we stand together with that, but they all give credit. They all give credit to the source of where they got it. They must. They must. Why? So that people can get on about it. So that people can get access the same way that they did. And so that we're all on the same fucking page. It's very, very simple. So the good that came out of it, the anger that came out of it, from Michael, which gave him like a real fire in his belly, I think it'd be fair to say, and one or two others as well, in terms of this needs to be addressed, and how can we help you, so that people, when they do this, then they do give credit to what you're doing. Why? Because it's helping, and it's really, really profound in terms of what it does, and there's nothing else like it. There's nobody else doing this stuff the way that I'm doing it. They don't have the experience, they don't have the knowledge, they don't have the wherewithal or the tools that I've picked up over all the hours, over all the years, that enables people to get the experience they're getting. And that's something, and a challenge with that is if they get the wrong experience, when somebody muddles it up by trying to do a clone of what I'm doing, and they take them through in a diluted way, there's a really strong chance the person that's lying down, they might get something, but they won't get it all. And they might know at that point, it can sour them and turn the other way. If that's what they think this is, they might miss it. Why? Because of, not the intentions of the person that's taking them through it, but the skill set and the awareness, the level of awareness in terms of, what they're doing and how it goes together. So there's been so much good come out of it. The fact that, it was a couple, those two people are now, they're gone. I wish them all the best. I really do. I wish, that's a weird thing. I never turn my back on anybody. Even there's some real fucking creeps, and I've mentioned a couple on here before, that I never turn my back on them. I send them all the best. They're on their own journey. They're here to work out for themselves. I wish them all the best. And now that I'm not watching them, now that I've blocked them on all fronts, which is the only thing to do, they can do what they want. They can go and then, great, they've came and they've got it, and then they can go and create their version of it and attract the people that's going to be attracted to them. That's the really good thing that's come out of this. So I send them all the love in the world. I really do. But I don't want to play with them. I don't play with thieves, and I don't like, but I understand how it's manifest, how it's came about. But at that point, I need to get back to tending to myself and doing my own thing with people that I can trust, and no wondering, whether they're nicking my stuff or nicking my words for all the above reasons. So my why is very simple. We've forgotten who we are. As our ancestors, as Andrew Berry said to me. Thank you very much, Andrew, if you hear this, brother. Young Andrew, just a real fucking pillar of light. One of the first things, I did a post the other day, which I'll probably do another Godcast on this. The World Cup's going to be on long enough, talking about the Tartan Army and Alba Gubra, what that means to Scotland forever, to be Scottish, what it means to be Scottish. And the post it wasn't a go at the Tartan Army, it was a go about, the ignorance of who we think we are as a people, and how sad it is that that's been forgotten. And young Andrew come back and basically said our ancestors would be ashamed of who we are. I think Andrew's 21, 22. Our ancestors would be ashamed of what we became. And it's interesting, somebody sent me, right when I put that post up, they basically sent me a screenshot of the post, and it said the whole country equals triggered. And I deliberated a lot on that, because the first line was all about, fat cunts good cunts in kilts and football tops. Is this the best we've got? It was that kind of thing. And, it's like, is that who we are? As a people, as a species, it's like, we must be more than that. And there's many levels to it. There's a lot to it. But the whole thing is the forgetting, the erasing of our history and who we are. And to think that that's who we are now, it's been lost, So the intention of the post was to try and remind people to have a good look. And one of the guys was like you're going to get fucking slaughtered for this. And I thought long and hard about it. And there wasn't a single negative comment, as there has hardly been in any, unless it's a really direct personal attack, as I have done in the past. And, one or two of their fucking lunatic pals will maybe have a go at me or threaten me. But by that, when I'm speaking the truth with this stuff, it's that you can't read the post, as inflammatory as it was to a lot of people, I'm sure. It's all truth. It's all truth. That's where I'm coming from. So that's why it's important for me. That's why integrity is so important. We need to allow, to create that environment within society so we can, as Hawkins says, allow God to try and sneak back in again. It's all about doing the right thing. It's all about doing what's right and standing for that. And being, independent of how it plays out. I will upset some people. I've already upset some people within my community. I know that because they don't understand where I'm coming from. And this is why, again, I'm the custodian of this. This is why I'm the custodian of the vortex, because, I'm so close to so many, but at the end of the day, I'm like, this is my thing. I'm leading this, and people come and go. People come and go all the time, and I'm always interested when people leave me and get away from me. And the first question I normally ask is, I wonder what it is that got them, what it is that took them out, where I lost them, what I said, or where their ego got offended, or where their idea of how I should have done it. It makes them get to the point it's like fuck him, I'm out of here, I don't want to be on about it anymore. That's always a really interesting part to me. That's never my intention, obviously, but it does happen, and that's where it's like, it's black and fucking white. You need to stand up and say no when somebody does that, because of everything I've just spoke about. You need to call it out, because you're doing them a disservice if you don't. And when you do speak your truth, it's amazing what happens to the field. It's more of the power. It's the truth that sets us free. That's a really, really good example of them. You speak your truth, I can feel that the change, the shift within consciousness, because somebody's done what's right. That's why it's so important to open the door for the wee woman that's struggling. Or to let somebody in the motorway and not curse them out or get stressed or angry with it. It's important to do the right thing. And in these times, for me, my intention is to talk about the right thing, because a lot of people can't see it and don't actually know, what the right thing is. So we need to bring it back. Number 83 was all about integrity. I hope I've done it justice. It's been on my mind for quite a wee bit now. It's so important, and it's a part of the way. It's a part of doing things correctly so we can get it back to the way that it's meant to be and how we're meant to live as human beings. And that's what this is all about. So I send you love. God bless. Take it easy. Peace out. And bye for now.